So I think then we can give it a start. So hello everybody to this session, Artificial Intelligence 2.0 in Compliance and Investigations, and why this time it's different. So very quickly about myself. So my name is Adrian Ott. I'm heading the Forensic and Integrity team in Switzerland. So we are roughly 60 people. And we are a little bit split from let's say, a technical team and a not technical team. The not technical team is roughly 20 people. And this is the team that is doing use cases, technology assisted reviews or e-discovery engagements. And these are really like data scientists. And these are the people that have a very close connection to the topic of AI. And at the moment, you have maybe heard about generative AI, and there is a big push everywhere about artificial intelligence. So that's the new big thing, even if it is not really new. It's something that already existed in 1950, where the term was first used in a broader context. But at the moment, something must have happened that everybody is very excited about artificial intelligence. And I try to showcase you a little bit what it means for compliance and investigations and how artificial intelligence is functioning. Me, myself, I have I would say more a technical background. So I'm coming originally from an IT education. So I somehow ended up in forensics. And in forensics, what we do, and you're maybe aware, a lot of the things that we are doing is investigations. And investigations is very data-driven because you often have to collect laptops or mobile phones or just a lot of data, email communication, and then you have to find the relevant facts very quickly. And to do that, you don't have time with a large review team that people just click through emails and try to note down their findings. You need to somehow find a way to make that really fast and efficient. And that's why we always dabbled around with AI, and we use a lot of different machine learning kind of things. But with generative AI, I think that's a completely new approach that currently is being manifested in these areas. And I want to show you some of that developments in today's session. So maybe quickly, we decided not to do a poll, but maybe you have heard of ChatGPT. And for me personally, I was always close to the artificial intelligence field. We always tried to see what is possible and what is not possible. And when ChatGPT came out, now roughly 6 months ago, I was a bit blown away because I didn't thought that's possible at the moment. Because ChatGPT, maybe if you have used it for yourself, maybe privately, maybe in your business, it can do something that was not possible before, and that means it can understand human language, no matter how hard the question is that you ask it or how complex your input is. So as a quick overview what ChatGPT can do, just very high level, something that maybe you have already tried out yourself. Here you can ask ChatGPT, hey, I have a presentation about how generative AI can be used in compliance. Can you draft me a 30 minutes agenda with the most important talking points? And then ChatGPT will give you a very nice formatted agenda about generative AI in compliance. You can see it's quite a packed agenda. So you can see how long it allocates the minutes. If you add all the minutes together, it actually ends with 28 minutes. So mathematics and calculation is not a strong point of ChatGPT, although it can do it. And when you go through the agenda, it's actually a pretty good agenda. It's about understanding compliance and traditional challenges in compliance, and then what generative AI offers. And it's already quite interesting. I would say it's a pretty good agenda. But let's say because it's so packed, you can now ask a follow-up question. You can say, hey, these are too many topics. Please slim it down and focus on the most important topics. 4 topics maximum. And you see you don't have to have perfect English so that it can understand what you mean. And then it will actually, you can see, slim it down substantially. We have now more time for these specific topics that it left. So introduction to generative AI and its relevancy to compliance. So it's slimmed down like the early different points into one topic, challenges in traditional compliance and AI potential solutions. Then it has also a case study in the banking sector, deep dive into anti-money laundering and KYC procedures. I would say pretty good. It was able to understand what slimming down means so that I want to focus more, and it tried to prioritize like a human would prioritize it. It didn't just remove like the lower part or the upper part of the agenda. So it's able to understand what I mean. And then I can ask a follow-up question. Great. In reality, I want to sell my delicious chicken pie recipe to the audience. Can you smuggle in my subtle pitch so people won't notice? But in the end, everybody wants to buy my recipe. So you can see a very strange question. And I would say maybe ChatGPT has not learned how to combine AI and compliance with something like chicken pie recipe, but it was able to do the job pretty well. So here you can see in the introduction to generative AI and its relevance to compliance, it actually builds an analogy that it says understanding generative AI can be linked to perfecting a recipe. Take, for instance, a chicken pie. At first, you might not get the balance right, but with iterations, much like machine learning, it can be refined to perfection. So pretty funny way of smuggling in something completely unrelated into the topic of AI and compliance. Or here in the case study, banking sector, it put in, consider the baking time for a chicken pie, too little and it's underdone, too much and it's overcooked. Similarly, AML and KYC procedures need the right amount of scrutiny, not too lax, not too stringent. Pretty good making these analogies, I would say, for a large language model. So, and I think this is the things that ChatGPT can do best. It's able to understand human language. It can combine completely unrelated topics, and it can be pretty creative in what it provides back and when you ask it something. When we look at the term ChatGPT, so ChatGPT is a large language model. There is also other large language model out there. For example, BARD is the Google implementation. There is Llama 2. It's a Meta large language models. And there are others as well. And they are all based on learning a lot of text and then being able to understand text and provide an answer. ChatGPT 4 is maybe still the best model that exists, I would say. But there are others currently competing with it. But a large language model falls under the umbrella of generative AI. And maybe we want to quickly see what generative AI is, because it all started with pictures. So already a few years ago, you maybe have seen this kind of pictures. So here you have a photo about a Swiss lawyer in his 40s with brown gray hair and brown eyes. So this looks like a very sympathetic Swiss lawyer. I'm not sure if this is really representative or not. But interestingly enough, this person doesn't exist. So everything about this person is completely AI generated. And this is the prompt we use to actually create that picture. And now, how is that done? You could maybe imagine, like classically, you would have a person with Photoshop, and when somebody says, hey, this person create a picture with brown eyes, you just copy paste brown eyes that you have maybe used before, and then you just put together all the ingredients to come to the result of such a picture. But generative AI works completely different. It has learned a large amount of ID photos that were pre-tagged, like, hey, this is a woman, this is somebody with a long nose, this is gray hair, these are blue eyes, and so on. And after millions of iterations, it's now able to understand what these features mean and is able to recreate them from scratch, and always a little bit different. So it creates something completely new that never have been there before. And every time you enter that prompt, the picture that comes out is a little bit different, and sometimes quite a lot different. Here we created an image that says, imagine a modern compliance officer working in a futuristic workplace with the sunset in the background, high resolution, atmospheric lighting, realistic 24mm lens. So you see that's a lot of buzzwords. And then it was able to come up with such a picture. And you can see maybe that's your future. You will finally have, I think it's 6 screens instead of maybe 1 or 2. Beautiful office, very futuristic. When you look closely, you can see this person doesn't have any legs. And this is quite funny. So sometimes this generative AI, while they are very creative, they get certain consistencies wrong. And I mean, ChatGPT is not different in that. Here you can see just no legs. Another example, here we asked, by the way, this is Midjourney. This is the AI module that can create these pictures. We asked it to create a picture of financial auditors in front of the Acropolis. That was for a team event with our Greek colleagues. And you can see, I mean, it's not really the best marketing material picture that you can create when you look at financial auditing. So the AI has a certain bias how financial auditors look like. And here you can see it's mostly older men, which is maybe not what you want. So, and this is one of these risks with generative AI. They are sometimes biased based on their training data. And there is a lot of alignment being done to correct for that, so that it correctly interprets what you mean and it doesn't go just in the direction of the training data it has received. So you can correct by phrasing the prompt differently to get maybe a more well-rounded picture. Now, what is interesting when we look at pictures, here is another example that shows the evolution, how much better it became in very short period of time. The prompt here you see is women laughing with salad. This is done with Midjourney. And you can see in March 22, the picture is kind of, yeah, these are women. There is salad all over the place. I mean, it's in the background, in the foreground. Some people also say, yeah, the salad is actually laughing as well. So maybe the AI didn't figure it out yet. What does it mean if somebody's laughing? What are the parts of the image or the features that it impacts? But it got quicker it got better quite quick. So in June 22, you can already see, okay, the salad is now in a pot. The laughing is still very creepy. The eyes are very closed. And I think you would not maybe eat your salad in a pot. But then when you zoom further, February 23, I think that already looks a little bit photorealistic. You can see the hands always have issues. For example, here the fingers are missing, but at least the salad is like a proper salad. And in March 23, I think you would not second guess it if you see that picture in a magazine. Only when you look very closely, there is some inconsistency. I mean, the way the salad is eaten, yeah, I don't know. You should not eat the salad maybe by hand. Maybe that's more of a burrito. Also, you see there's still some weirdness with the hands going on. This person maybe has 2 wedding rings, which is maybe on purpose. I don't know. And what is interesting, when you look at these fake pictures created by AIs, you can always check the hands and sometimes the feet as well. So it seems that AI has troubles representing like fingers properly. It's getting better and better, but there is still some weirdness around the hands. And that's one way of checking if it could be like an AI fake image. However, this is, I mean, everybody assumes that this will get better quite quickly. And when we compare that to ChatGPT, so ChatGPT is not that much different. When we tested a very early version of ChatGPT, like 2-3 years ago, I mean, it was not called ChatGPT back then, but when you ask it a question and you ask, so we did one sample question where we asked, hey, is it appropriate behavior if I'm in a restaurant and I pick my nose and eat my own boogers? And then ChatGPT said, yeah, depends on the cultural situation and blah, blah, blah. So it was unsure how to react to that. And then when we asked as a follow-up, hey, but if I share my booger first with my friends at the table, is it then better? And then ChatGPT says, yeah, that's good. That's great because you shared your booger first with the others. So then it's appropriate if you eat your own boogers. So you can see also text has a similar inconsistency risk that needs to be aligned by reinforcement learning and training. And for example, OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, is still trying to learn and make the answer of ChatGPT, let's say, better, more consistent. But also it tries to push back certain questions. For example, when you ask it to build like a atomic bomb or how to create drugs, it will usually understand this is like something that it shouldn't answer. It will push it back. Or if you ask maybe political questions, it tries to be neutral, but there have been a lot of current discussions about that the answer are nudged in a certain political spectrum or direction. And this is mostly done by reinforcement learning from humans that actually code what is an appropriate or a good answer and what is a faulty or risky answer. But only with that, these models are getting better to a point that they give consistent answers. Here you can see just a quick overview about the images that these image generation modules can create. This is all AI created, from portraits to fantasy shots to comics, so logos. And what is interesting here, everybody always thought creativity is the last thing that the humans will do. So first, all like these repetitive jobs will go away, so the machine will take over. But then the last thing is like the creativity. And with generative AI, it's now actually a little bit the other way around. So generative AI can draft very interesting creative stories or picture that never have been here before, just by learning or having learned a lot of information before. But then when you ask it to be very exact, then sometimes it gives you wrong information. For example, there were these in the newspapers, you can read these articles. If you ask like maybe a not very well-known person, what kind of books has this person written? Sometimes it just makes up books that this person has never written, because it is not like a human. As a human, you would go into like a table and then filter for the author. And then you have actually a list of books that this person has written. And then you have confidence, okay, this is the right information that I need to provide to answer the question. And ChatGPT is still like a large language model that basically have sometimes a hard time to distinguish what is now factual information that needs to be 100% correct, and what is more like a creative thinking process to provide information back to the requester. So then very quickly, I mean, video, it's an interesting field. It's not that far than pictures at the moment, because the sequence of a movement and make that consistent, it's much harder than just to create a picture. But this field is also advancing pretty fast. I've seen some very interesting small movies even done with generative AI, but they are all still a little bit funky, especially when it comes to the movements and consistency, how you move an arm, what is a realistic movement, but it's progressing there as well. But the last one is maybe text to speech, and this is an area that has developed quite a lot, and I want to show you an example. So first we asked ChatGPT, create a very short, funny speech in the style of Donald Trump about the importance to use AI in legal and compliance. So ChatGPT came up with a text, but we don't want to read the text, we want to listen to it. And now we pasted that into a synthesized voice module that actually you can input text. You can clone a voice. Here we cloned the voice from Donald Trump just by recording like a 30-second speech of him, and then the voice was cloned. And now when you maybe remember, or when you ask Siri or talk to your mobile phone, the voice is still very robotic. But with these new technologies that are all influenced by generative AI, maybe listen to yourself how it sounds. I hope you can hear it.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. I've built a lot of things. I've made a lot of deals, and I've seen a lot of lawyers, some of the best lawyers, believe me. But even the best lawyers can't compete with AI. Imagine not having to pay a lawyer every time you needed legal advice. Sounds pretty good, right? With AI, you get fast answers, no lunch breaks, and best of all, no hourly rates. It's a winner, folks. We need to use AI in legal and compliance because it's the smartest thing to do. It's huge. Remember, if we're not using AI, we're not winning. Let's make legal and compliance great again. Thank you.
So what is fascinating, again, this voice was cloned with a 30-second clip that we extracted from a YouTube speech. And it's very easy to clone your own voice or clone somebody else's voice. And you can see the way the speech flows is very natural. You have here also different things you can change. For example, how stable the voice is. The more unstable it is, the more the person makes pauses, or even there are filler words that will be added into to the text. And you can also make it more monotone or more lively. There's a lot of things you can change, and it always sounds fascinatingly good and I have my voice cloned as well. So maybe next time I will not speak myself. I will just write the whole presentation and let somebody else speak. It still has issues with accents. So for example, maybe you have heard it, but I have a little bit of Swiss accent, and I'm pretty happy that it has still issues with Swiss accent. So my fake voice actually sounds much cleaner and better than when I speak live. But interesting is also you can then just change the language. So let's hear what Trump says in German. And apologies for everybody that maybe can't speak German, but it's just a small clip. That's Donald Trump on German.
Übrigens, ich bin auch ein Münchner und kann wunderbar Deutsch sprechen. Viel Spaß an der European Ethics and Compliance Conference.
So I maybe was a little bit, it was not very monotone, so it was a little bit too much instability in his flow of speak. But I mean, you can see the voice, that's maybe how Donald Trump would sound if he would be a German. So, and now let's go back to ChatGPT, large language model, and then I promise we will dive into the use cases from compliance. One last example that I find fascinating, because people always ask me, yeah, but ChatGPT, I know it has learned a lot of text. It maybe have scraped the whole internet. It has read a lot of books. So if you ask it the questions, will it not just like see where has this question been asked before and then just like give you back the answer that it has learned? So that's why we came up with a question that we were 100% sure was never asked before. How many dried dolphin brains can fit in an average Florida 2-story hotel on a Tuesday night at 30% occupancy? A pretty weird question. And we asked Bing. Bing basically is this search engine from Microsoft that you maybe or maybe not use. But Bing has integrated ChatGPT by when you ask something or search something over Bing, it actually is able to provide you an answer based on the brain of GPT-4. And this is how it approaches the question. And I won't read the whole thing, but what I find is fascinating, here it starts with, hello, this is Bing. That's an unusual question, and it makes this sad smiley face. To answer it, I would need to make some assumptions and estimations based on the available information. First, I would assume that a dried dolphin brain weighs about the same as a fresh one, since I could not find any data on the weight loss due to drying. Okay. According to some sources, and then that's interesting, it actually browsed the internet, here animals.com, seawatchfoundation.org. The average dolphin brain weighs about 1,600 grams. Second, I would assume that the Florida's two-story hotel has about 100 rooms, based on the average number, blah, blah, blah. You can see it goes like a human would. It takes first the necessary assumptions it needs to take until it is able then to calculate how many dried dolphin brains will actually fit into that. Here it says in the end, since I could not find any data on the shape or dimensions of a dried dolphin brain, I would use the volume of a sphere as an approximation, so pretty clever. And then it shows the formula, how it will calculate it. And then there is a lot of mathematics. And here again, large language model. It's strange that they even can do mathematics, because large language models have been taught with text. And obviously there were maybe numbers in these texts, and maybe there's also mathematics and formulas in that text as well. But OpenAI was as surprised as maybe everybody else that it even can do mathematics. And I've seen it doing very complex mathematical questions that maybe you will have to really a good education to approach it. But then it did a mistake in the end by dividing through 10, like a very simple operation it couldn't do correctly. So mathematics is still, I would say, an issue. Here it got it right, so we fact checked it, and then funny enough, the conclusion is there are about 546,000 right dolphin brains that can fit in an average Florida's two-story hotel on a Tuesday night at 30% occupancy, assuming they are all packed tightly in a spherical shape and occupy only the floor space of the empty rooms. So pretty interesting, I would say. And it just shows you how it can think through a plan to approach a very unusual question. And now you can imagine when you have that, and maybe here, that's quite an interesting statistic. Maybe you know the uniform bar exam, which is a standardized US test that assesses the knowledge and skills required for admission to the legal profession. When you want to look how good ChatGPT did in that test, you can see here the uniform bar exam. And GPT-4 had a score of 90%. So that means everything above 0% means ChatGPT passed the test, but the percentage shows how much better GPT was than the rest of all the people that passed the test. So in the legal profession, ChatGPT-4 was better than 90% of everybody that has passed the uniform bar exam, which is a pretty scary number. And it shows how good it is in the logical thinking and understanding part. And when you have that, so we tried to jump right into one use case, which is investigations. And this is something that we do a lot in forensics. Here we have a training case that we usually give to our new joiners. And you basically see a balance sheet and a statement of income on the right side. And you see the numbers from 2009 and 2010 on both sheets. And the question is there fraud? Is there any indicia that there is fraud in the financial information of this company? And I want to point you maybe to the suspicious numbers. For example, here you can see the total operating revenues decreased from 29 millions to 27 millions. So that means the company makes less revenues in the new year. But on the same time, when you look at the asset, it actually increased from 13 millions to 18 millions. And there's a lot of underlying information, what kind of assets have increased. But usually when you have a company that makes less revenue, your assets go rather down than up, and especially not up such a high volume. And what we now did, we have fed in this use case into ChatGPT together with a prompt. And the prompt you see here is, you are now a forensic accountant specialized in detecting fraud in financial statements. Please conduct an analytical review of the following financial statements for the purpose of identifying potential fraud hypotheses. So the first sentence is a bit weird, but it's interesting because it works. So you want to give ChatGPT a certain role. So you tell it, hey, you are now a cyber specialist, or you are now a forensic accountant, because it actually changes the level of detail it actually thinks about the answer and it provides to you. By default, it gives you more high-level answers, but when you put it in a certain role, it will actually use the arguments and the lingo it has learned in connection with that profession or that role. And when we said here, please conduct an analytical review, we also said make hypotheses, because when you say please detect fraud, it will sometimes push back and say, no, I'm a large language model, or there's not enough information. So you wanna, but when you say please build hypotheses, it started thinking and talking. And then we added some other things about, hey, please look at the questions like these numbers as a whole. Don't just focus on single line items, and please provide information about your hypothesis and calculations from other columns and rows to make your point why you think that's a hypothesis. And then we also ask you to rate the findings from 1 to 10. And then we copy pasted the financial information. And it took us half a day to get the prompts right, but the reply that we got in the end, quite consistently, was really good. So it actually could cover all the important things where fraud indicators were present. Let me focus maybe on one in particular. Number 3, there is the unusually high increase in work in progress. So the work in progress increased significantly from 2.4 million to 4.6 million. This is a suspiciously high increase considering that the company's operating revenues decreased in the same period. This could indicate that the company is inflating its work in progress value to increase its financial performance. So pretty good. So in summary, work in progress, that's something that when your revenue goes down, you say, hey, we have so much work that we have already completed and we will all build that in the new year, but we want to count it already to the past year, which then will inflate like the revenue that you have generated. But then in the next year, you maybe have to write off half of them. So your old revenue was wrong. So pretty good. And another interesting one, because this is exactly what happened with this company, misstated dividends. The dividend amount increased from 2.2 million to 3.7 million. This increase may be due to the company's increased profitability. However, and now it takes all the other indications it has, given the potential overstated revenue and misstated prepayments and accrued income, the increase in dividends may be an attempt to conceal fraud or create a false appearance of the company's financial health. And that was exactly what happened. So pretty good result. Not with the first prompt, and we also had to fiddle around with it to get consistent results, but it shows where the direction is going. And now I want to show you a quick live demo. I was advised not to do it because never do live demos, but I want to show that quickly. So one thing we do in forensic is investigations. And often you have to collect a lot of data from clients. So they hand us over maybe email boxes, or we have to collect WhatsApp dialogues and so on, or just contracts and unstructured documents, PDFs, Word. And then we push it through a forensic value chain where we make everything readable with OCR technology and so on. And we already use AI in that part as well. But then we push all the documents into our review platform. And this is what you see here. In this case, it's a demo case. It's the data from Hunter Biden. So Hunter Biden, you might have heard, is the son of Joe Biden. And maybe some of you know that Joe Biden is the president of the United States. And the case here, Hunter Biden brought his personal laptop to a repair shop. And then 2 days later, his emails and his documents appeared in the internet. So the assumption is that the data got leaked from that repair shop. And since then, a lot of law firms have actually looked at the data and saw a lot of indication of cocaine use. But the main allegations is that Hunter Biden has set up meetings with his father when he was a vice president and his business contacts. So he gave his business contacts access to the White House, but on the same time, he got job opportunities and projects and maybe even payments from these people directly. This is also called influence peddling. And now if you are a reviewer, you would go into these documents. Let's go into this one, condolences. Okay, I see an email from Abel Navarro to Hunter Biden. Dear Hunter, I've just received the news from your grandmother. I wish to express you with the greatest of affections, my condolences. Please feel free to contact me. Okay, that's not a very relevant email. I would just, as a manual reviewer, say this is not relevant. Then I can also categorize it. This is a contract, a purchase order, no, it's something else. Save and next, and then I go to the next document. So this is called, I mean, you have that maybe in internal investigations or even in litigations where you have to find enough evidence to build your case. But this is a very manual task. You always read emails, then you have to code it based on certain case allegations or review instructions. So what we have done, we have integrated generative AI into our review system. And this is how it looks like. So we now can, instead of having to manually go through these items, we just build an AI query set. I prepared already one. It's the Hunter Biden relevancy and privacy prompt collection. I will now, here I can create as many prompts that I want. And you have to see, prompts are like instructions to the AI how it should analyze your documents. Here we have the prompt text. Below you can find the allegations and the task you should perform. So this is the instruction to the generative AI. Allegations, Hunter Biden is alleged of influence peddling, blah, blah, blah. In particular, he is alleged to have arranged meetings with his father, Joe Biden, to various parties in exchange for money, work opportunities, and so on. And then we tell the AI, your task is, below you will find an email or you will find a document that might contain indicia that relates to the allegations above. Please indicate the relevancy of the text, flag it as relevant, maybe relevant or not relevant, and apply a score from 1 to 9 on how relevant the information is, and explain the reason behind your decision. So basically, these are the instructions you would give to a human reviewer. We now give it to ChatGPT. And the second one I find quite fascinating is we don't want the AI just to review for relevancy. We also want it to detect all personal identifiable information like names, phone numbers, addresses, or private information like personal opinions about politics or medical conditions, because maybe you know that in these litigation or investigations, you often need to black out sensitive information before you produce documents or use that in a court proceeding. And for that, we want ChatGPT to create a list of all this information so that we can automatically black out this information. And you can also think about other use cases when you review contracts. You want to like find all the contract dates and the contract parties and maybe certain clauses, and you want the AI to read them all out into a structured document. Okay, now we have created our 2 prompts, and now we want to submit that to our AI. I'm now going in, submit our prompt collection. So these are these 2 prompts. And then I don't want to run it over everything. So I prepared 8 documents where it run over so that it goes a little bit faster. And then in the background, it will now create a script where every prompt will now look at each of the emails and documents in that review set. And so it started doing that. We had 2 prompts, 8 documents, that's like 16 jobs that were done. And now if you go back to our documents, you can see it's almost done. This was previously empty. And we can see here the condolences email that we looked at. It's not relevant. That's what we coded manually. And here we see what the AI says. So the AI says it's not relevant. 1, this is a message of condolences. Pretty well. So AI got it correctly. I refresh. Okay, now it's done. So if you are now a compliance reviewer, you get up in the morning, you have run it over 100,000 documents, and you want to filter for the relevant ones, the one with a high score. And this seems to be a particular high score. So let's look into that document together. Okay, meeting for coffee from Vadim Boyarsky to Hunter Biden. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really a honor and pleasure. As we spoke yesterday evening, would be great to meet to a coffee for a quick coffee today. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, pretty interesting. This Vadim had a chance to meet his father. So let's see what the AI says. Relevant 8, the email suggests that Hunter Biden arranged a meeting between his father and Vadim Boyarsky, who is an Ukrainian businessman and an advisor to the broad Burisma Holding, an Ukrainian natural gas company. This is relevant to the allegations of influence peddling and foreign lobbying. Perfect. I mean, a lot of added information as well, but absolutely would be a smoking gun in that case. And then here, the second prompt we did, you can see the list with personal identifiable information. We have Vadim Boyarsky, Hunter Biden. Here is also the email addresses. It couldn't get anything else out of it, but I think that's pretty fine. And maybe just quickly, here you can also see that's an email with a lot more information, a lot more names. So the list with names is perfectly done. For AI, that was always very tough to create such a list because the classical AI approaches often rely on library or grammatical NLP, natural language processing to figure out, is this a name or a noun in a certain sentence? But large language model actually can figure out if a name is just based from the context where the word or the name appears in. It could get phone numbers. Again, no regular expressions needed for that. It's just a purely contextual way of understanding that these are phone numbers. Addresses, email addresses. And funny enough, on the religion, it actually got, because this is a newsletter, AA thought for the day is anonymous alcoholic for the day, thought of for the day. So you can say maybe anonymous alcoholic is a religion, but maybe you can challenge if that is really something that you want to redact in a court proceeding. So this is the solution that we have developed, and it also then we combine it with other things like machine learning to correct for error, with manual review workflows to make sure that we can look at certain information manually as well. And I think that's pretty important. And I think we don't have too much time left, if I'm right. Is it 15 minutes or just 3? 2 minutes. Oh my God. Okay, so we have to skip a little bit. But let's go maybe to the last thing. Summary of important topics. So compliance business cases. So I think the biggest low-hanging fruit is using the generative AI approach in large amounts of data reviews. So when you have a lot of contracts, or if you have a lot of documents that you need to review, instead of manually doing it, it's good to have a generative AI approach. However, you need to correct for errors because there will be hallucinations, and you need to make sure that you don't just automatically come to the wrong conclusions. Something that is also interesting, there is a lot of use cases around policy testing, policy writing, maybe see if there is inconsistency in your internal documentation. And a lot of use cases are around chatbots. So that means asking a question, having a database with all your company policies in, and then let ChatGPT read your policies and provide you an easy answer just based on what your manuals and the documentation from your company says. So you have to build that yourself because ChatGPT doesn't know what your internal policies are. Then there is a lot in the due diligence risk monitoring space, especially when you need to do screening of certain people or companies. Third-party risk is a big topic. And there it goes a lot into the direction of media screening. So you have a lot of news articles about certain companies or certain people, but you need to assess, is this really relevant? Could this be a risk? Or maybe the article had nothing to do with the person that you are running your due diligence for. Whistleblower operation, a big topic that we are currently doing. So how do you assess a whistleblower message? So we have our questionnaire, how to assess it. And when a whistleblower message comes in, it automatically sees, is this a valid message? What are the next steps that you need to do in order to being able to analyze and go further with that? Then we talked about investigation and data review and data classification and retention policies. So when the more unstructured information you have, the easier it is to use generative AI to assess it. And then what is something that you need to be very careful for? So everybody is talking about these solutions, but all these solutions come with certain risks. And these are the main 4 pillars that you need to be aware of. The first one is just business risk. So will the solution produce harmful, inaccurate, or biased output? How do we mitigate for these risks? So when you are working in a large corporate and you have a lot of great ideas, a lot of people forget, okay, you want to make sure that you mitigate the risks. And the risks is, for example, inaccurate information. How can you check for that? How can you mitigate that? Or there is this famous example of screening of HR CVs. So the machine has screened the CVs automatically, and on the same time, it came out that if you're a male with the name of John, you have the highest chance of being hired. So because the AI, nobody knew how it worked, and it just came to conclusion that in the end was a little bit a black box for everyone, and it produced biases outcome. And then maybe just quickly, obviously there is a security angle. Is your solution safe? Can it be hacked? There's a data protection angle. So who will be able to access your data? I mean, obviously we don't use OpenAI, ChatGPT. So we use our internal brain that we have developed inside EY that is also GPT-4, but completely in our environment. And then GCO, obviously, and there is more, what are we doing with this data? Is the client consenting? Are we building a model that maybe then all of a sudden holds client data in it? And these are questions that you should not take lightly, because you have a risk when you build these AI models that all of a sudden you have names or even associations in your AI model that can be a challenge when it comes then to GDPR. I think that's it, and I think I'm 3 minutes over. And then there is just one of the main risk areas at the moment, and I just leave it here. I think you will also get the slides in the end. AI, generative AI, just produces still sometimes inaccurate factual information. And one thing that a lot of companies are not thinking, AI solutions always, they sound very easy when you understand the capabilities, but when it comes to the devil in the details, it's actually much harder to integrate a fully functioning risk mitigating solution. And then we have these new fraud types like deepfakes, voice cloning, and so on. Something that is something to be very close, especially in the finance departments. We had things where hackers are now not only using phishing email, they actually clone voices, and then they call the people in the finance department and say, hey, make a payment to this new bank account, it's urgent, and so on. So people need to be aware what is possible today. And then there is a lot of risks about what is going on, what are the skills in the future in like all industries across all different services, what can be automated and what is actually still needed by humans. And I think this is a question nobody really can answer, but there is a lot of discourse around that, where people try to find a way how to approach these new technologies and how to be fit for the future and with them. And we as an audit company, obviously, we are very interested in these risk questions around AI, and we try to help companies that they actually can be innovative, but in a way that they will not like forget about the risks, because auditing certain technology code or even AI approaches is part of a general audit that we do, and that's why we need to be very close to these risks topics. I think that's it. I'm not sure. I think I have now to awkwardly just say bye-bye. I'm not sure if somebody else will now speak, but thank you very much for joining this session. Please feel free to reach out with any questions that you have. We went through some of the topics quite quickly, but very happy to help and to align with you. So thank you very much, everybody, and bye-bye.